Over the past few months, I've been getting an increasing amount of questions about why women have become the face of overconsumption. And is that really fair? Today, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some of the assumptions that come with how women spend their money. We'll talk about why there has been a focus on women and if that focus is fair. We'll also talk about how and when critiques that overly focus on women, like when and where that's a problem. And we'll also take a look at some male influencers. There is a ton happening in this video. I think it's going to be a long one, but a good one. So strap in. There is a very long history of framing women's interests as shallow, irrational, and uninteresting. And that framing has factored into how society has justified limiting women's economic power. In the late 19th and early 20th century, when women really began entering the workforce, particularly in the US and Canada, in full force, yes, women have been working and laboring since then. There is just an increased presence starting in the 19th century. Public discourse often framed women's wages as pin money. This was a common nickname for women's wages, not only to articulate that women's earnings were not substantial or important, but also to articulate how they would spend their money on their baubles and their pins, trinkets, things of not much consequence. Policymakers, newspapers, men kind of generally framed women's earnings as something women would waste. They would buy these luxuries, nice to have trinkets instead of necessities. This stereotype conveniently supported the low wages for women and reinforced the idea that men were legitimate earners. While this is an oversimplification, this legacy still shapes cultural attitudes about women and money. Linguistic analysis of about 300 financial articles from the UK and other countries over the past year showed that 65% of those aimed at women defined them as splurgers, excessive spenders with poor judgment who needed to rein in their spending and limit their outgoings in order to save. When the reader was female, the landscape of financial planning tended to be painted as complex and threatening a minefield, and imagery tended to be of women who were emotionally or even physically overwhelmed, cowering beneath an oversized credit card, for example, and often included infantile imagery such as piggy banks and pennies. A third of the articles also assumed women to be responsible for family support and care. Interesting dichotomy. By contrast, articles aimed at men painted their readers as savvy financiers and the financial landscape as packed with opportunity. Rather than saving pennies, male directed articles talked of portfolios, calculated risk, and rely heavily on stereotypes of aspirations to combat strength and power. They also heavily implied that the reader was competitive with matey phrases such as having a punt or playing the game. When it came to luxury goods, while a woman might splurge on a pair of expensive shoes, a man was likely to invest in a suit. There's actually a lot of great stuff in this article, and it'll be linked in the description. So, this introduction is really to say that women have been stereotyped to be bad with money. Women be shopping, women be spending. And when we see women who are overspending or overconsuming or pushing this in today's TikTok culture, it becomes proof of this concept that already exists. Look, women are just shit with money. Meanwhile, men who overconsume are just out of the spotlight. And there are so many examples of this that aren't discussed. And I think that is why a lot of people have been asking about it. Like, where are the men? They also shop like this, they also consume. Why is the focus not also on them? So, I want to look at some stats to directly compare men and women's shopping habits to really look at the question like, are women as bad with money as culturally or socially we're taught to believe? The answer is no, but let's look at the evidence. Single men outspend single women by only a slight margin. Men spend an average of $35,000 a year, while women spend $33,000. It's important to note, though, that men earn roughly $10,000 more per year than women. Single men spend more annually on food. The figure is roughly $4,100 and women $3,600. Men also spend more than double on alcohol than women. Women spend more on clothing than men, about $1,100 per year for women, $813 for men. I'm giving some rough estimates here. Exact numbers are going to be on the screen when I speak. Cars, men outdrove women in this category, spending a total of $5,500 a year on personal transportation costs compared to women's $4,200. Women, however, spend nearly twice as much on car insurance than their male counterparts. Yeah, I don't actually know that that's fair to include, given that you don't really have a ton of say in your car insurance. Like, you get certain rates, and assumptions about how well you drive are gendered. That's what we're saying. Personal care, ladies vastly outspend men on personal care products and services. On average, women were willing to pay about $714 a year on self care, while men spend close to $297. Men as well tend to have more saved up in retirement. The average for men is close to 120,000 and for women just over 81,000. However, if you look at the percentage they save from their paychecks, women came in first place. A recent Vanguard study found that women are more likely to participate in workplace retirement plans and that they put up to 8% more of their pre tax earnings in these plans than men in the same earnings bracket. The discrepancy is largely due to how much money they make. When it comes to splurging, quote unquote, consumer research company Deloitte received more than 150,000 responses in their recent survey about splurges and found that men are just as likely as women to treat themselves in various categories. The survey also found that men spend almost 40% more, well, more than women. On average, women are still responsible for the majority of family caregiving and household labor, negatively impacting their lifetime earning potential. Women also tend to suffer more severe financial consequences of divorce. By contrast, men feel socially pressured to exude wealth and status regardless of their success and frequently go into debt to keep up their appearance. Trans individuals typically take on more debt when starting out than their cis peers, likely due to lack of financial support and living accommodations provided by family. This puts trans and non-binary individuals in a more financially precarious position than cis men or women. Now, I'm going to have some figures on the screen for different types of loans. Um, Overall, men have more debt than women, generally speaking. Not all debt is considered bad debt. Some debt is considered good debt, but you'll see the breakdown on the screen. And here is some stats on that. Men have 16.3% more auto loan debt than women, 2% more credit card debt than women, 9.7% more mortgage debt than women, and 20% more personal loan debt than women. Women, however, have 2.7% more student loan debt than men. Also have an interesting graph on Cyber Week spending, which is pretty similar. Apparently, more men than women plan to shop Black Friday, but more women than men plan to shop Cyber Monday. On any given day, 37.1% of American women and 34.6% of men shop. However, just about 90% of women claim responsibility for daily household shopping, which would mean that women go and spend more money or would be out shopping more frequently. Across categories, the picture is quite nuanced. Women are really not the shoppers that like the culture says that they are or that the stereotypes suggest. Like, I almost don't even want to say that or like show these stats to like confirm or support this belief, but I also feel like unless you counter that with like actual evidence, we have much of this evidence are from credit card companies. All of the stuff is going to be linked below. People that have access to numbers. Yes, women spend more in some categories than men, and men spend more in some categories than women. But overall, I feel like the spending is fairly close, like when it comes to like shopping categories. But I think something like if you take auto loan debt, this is one that tends to just not appear in conversation because debt is like a really private thing that people don't have to share. And also cars, you can see it if you're watching somebody long enough, like if we're talking about TikTok culture and you see them regularly kind of going through cars, then you can think, all right, this person is buying a lot of cars. But car culture is so embedded in North America and people do get into insane amount of debts for cars, and it's kind of considered normal. And so a man might not be, I'm making some stereotypes here, some generalizations, I mean. A man might not be spending majority of his paycheck on, let's say, clothes as an example, but if he's spending, let's say, the difference on his car payment that like maybe he didn't need, the point isn't to flip the script and to say, men, you are the problem. No, there are responsible, money conscious people, irresponsible, non money conscious people across the spectrum of gender. What matters is the cultural lens of who gets critiqued and how we critique them. And who's spending gets chalked down to poor moral choices and a personality trait. Let's Because this channel focuses so heavily on influencers, we got to take a look at some male influencers now. We're going to trust me, there's more to discuss. We'll get there.
Today's payday and it's Black Friday, so let's spend some money together. On today's episode of Retail Therapy with Ryan, I'm on a mission to find all the good Black Friday deals. The first stop was Lululemon because American Express gave me a $75 credit that I need to spend by end of year. You guys know I just picked up a quarter zip from Aloe, but I like these Lululemon ones even better, so I picked up 2 pairs, one for me and one for my dad. I haven't been in the mall on Black Friday in years, and it reminded me why online shopping is far superior. The mall was a literal madhouse. It was so busy, and I'll probably never be back again, but it didn't stop me from going to Aritzia. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything I wanted, so I went straight to the Rolex store to get my watch cleaned. While they were cleaning my watch, I tried on a few pieces and created a new profile at this location, so hopefully one day I can get a call and pick up a new piece at retail. One of the sales associates told me he loved watching my videos, so just maybe that'll increase my chances of getting a watch, but regardless, it was so nice meeting you. From there, I headed down to my favorite store, Abercrombie & Fitch, and picked up a few pieces that I've been waiting to go on sale. I picked up a jacket and 2 shirts, one for me and one for my brother. Alright, next stop is Saks Fifth Avenue because American Express gave me another $50 credit that I need to spend by end of year. After walking around Saks Fifth Avenue for about 20 minutes, I very quickly realized that I can't afford anything in this store aside from some fragrances, but I just bought 3 bottles of cologne, so I ended up walking out of that store empty-handed. But all that shopping made me pretty hungry, so I headed straight to El Camino for happy hour, tacos, and drinks. Peace.
Okay, so we just watched this video and I totally forgot to introduce this segment. Okay, we just watched this video, but I forgot to introduce this segment more thoroughly. I was so distracted. I'm so sorry. So we're gonna watch now some TikToks from influencers exclusively on fashion. And I chose fashion because I did get a lot of comments from people talking about like gaming specifically, like video games or like cosplaying or anime or comic books or other kinds of stuff like that. Not a niche I live in. I felt like a good comparison would be clothes. This is something I am familiar with and one of the things we talk most about on this channel. And so I think if you are a regular viewer, what I hope you'll notice in this segment are some of the things that we talk about all the time on this channel, and I'll just point a few of them out. This one says Black Friday shopping $1,000 budget, retail therapy. This is retail therapy. We've talked about this ad nauseum, and we're going to talk about it some more. I think after this video, we're going to talk about some home sense stuff and our home goods, and there's going to be more discussion of retail therapy there. Actually, I'm not sure which one's going to come out first. Might make more sense now to put that one out first, but you get me. Retail therapy is a garbage habit to promote. It's a terrible habit. It's a terrible habit because retail therapy isn't really a thing. Shopping does not solve your problems. Shopping does not help with emotional regulation. And calling it that can make us, feel better about spending money, a way to just feel better about doing something maybe we shouldn't do or feels like an indulgence and a way to justify it. Perhaps, but a common one we see on this channel all the time. And he also says he gets these credits from Capital One that he has to spend by not Capital One, American Express, that he has to spend by the end of the year. That does not actually mean you have to spend it on Lululemon and Saks Fifth Avenue. You could put it's a credit on your credit card, right? Like if you have rewards on your credit card, I'm sure you've gotten one before. Unless there's something specifically happening here that is not that, you can do that. It doesn't mean you must go buy new things from the mall. He also has another video, which I'll just overlay here, saying like a $4,000 Black Friday haul, which is essentially showing all of this stuff. He also says he doesn't need more cologne because he just bought 3 and then shows himself buying 2 new colognes that he like had to get because they were on sale. No. And then So I was watching this video and I'm like, where's the $4,000? Like, this is a few $100s worth of stuff. Where is the 4,000? Um, he spent $3,600. Yes, I didn't make a mistake. $3,600 on a gym membership. And maybe I'll play some of that once I'm done speaking because it might be nice to hear it in his own words.
See, the most expensive thing I bought this Black Friday is not something physical. It is an experience. It's a membership. Your boy just joined the Equinox Gym, which is $335 a month, over $3,600 for the year, which might sound crazy, but it's never a waste of money to invest in your health, your fitness, and your overall well-being.
And he talks about how it's like a networking opportunity, but also it's like he's investing in yourself. Going to a gym is great. I go to a gym. It's a wonderful thing. If you use it, wonderful. But you can go to a gym and not have it be $3,600. Let's keep going. I want to rapid fire the rest of them so we could see more quantity, more. Okay, so this one, I'm going to play, it's a few seconds.
It is starting to get really cold outside and I'm in need of some new winter clothes. So let's go.
He says, it's starting to get cold out, so I'm in need of a new winter clothes. Let's go shopping. We hear this kind of language all the time. And I talk about it like I gotta be at least once a month, where new season equals buy new things. This is exactly what's happening here. New season means go buy new clothes. No, it being winter or fall or spring or summer does not inherently mean you need more clothes. First of all, if you already have clothes that fit you, that are for that season, it's not a need, it's a want. It's fine to buy things you want, but not a need. And we call things needs in order to justify buying things and we feel better about it. But changing over the season does not necessitate new clothes. This guy also, like his whole shtick in his profile is, I have zero old money, but dress like I do. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he's fancy, if he's old money, if he wears lots of suits and it's like super classy, irrelevant. You still don't need more stuff. Let's also rapid fire this PR haul here, PR haul, PR haul, PR haul. They're kind of insane. We got a back to school haul, a clean boy mini haul. This guy also does a back to school haul that's just as big as the other back to school hauls I've covered. This one says, propaganda I'm not falling for, saving money, and he's doing luxury shopping. Excuse me? Propaganda I'm not falling. That is such a toxic message. Propaganda I'm not falling for, saving money. I'm so sorry that financial stability is propaganda. Like, what? Okay, another popular style of video that is popular among the men is them calling things like recent pickups.
Let's talk about some recent pickups from the last few months, including clothes, shoes, fragrances, and accessories.
And essentially, it's just like showing all of the things that they just bought, which is ultimately a haul as well. Like, we could call it a haul, but monthly pickups or recent pickups. Okay, so this guy, he got Acne Studio, Loewe, Gucci. There's thousands of dollars here. I started going in to try and calculate how much, but like after I found out like the top was like $800, I was like, okay. And you know, Louis Vuitton is those bags are what, like $5,000-$6,000, like already a couple of mortgage payments in the bag. Okay, this guy does a Cotton On haul. I wanted to share just a little bit because women all the time are like, a phrase that women get, I feel like, beaten over the head about is when they say, I'm obsessed. We have an I'm obsessed here.
Obsessed with the bagginess and the width. I think they pair really well with like nice thicker tank tops. I got this color and every other color that they had.
And he also says, I bought it in all the colors. Another common one we hear in women's fashion videos all the time. Like, I loved it. I bought it in all the colors. We got sponsorships, shop with me's, try on hauls, more regular hauls.
A week worth of packages. Let's do an unboxing.
Okay, this guy, he's Canadian, by the way, which I know because he shops at Marks and he did a sponsorship with Marks. And he did a COS haul, and I'll play it on the screen as I talk. He bought 4 pieces: a striped shirt for $120 USD, trousers for $150 USD, a felt jacket for $150, and an overcoat for $390. It's a very casual $810 in this video, or 1,132 Canadian dollars, which like he's Canadian, so that's like $1,100. And also, the men shop at my mortal nemesis, arch nemesis, Shein. And there are viral popular items that like are circulating in the men's fashion world that I didn't know about because I'm not tapped into the men's fashion world, which joke's on me because I got caught in a Shein loop, and you bet your hiney these are going to be added to the winter Shein bingo. I don't know when it's going to come, but it's going to be added. So yeah, there's viral men's items happening. There's a lot of what I ordered versus what I got happening. There's also like particularly in like men's Shein fashion haul, there's just a lot of try on hauls. And what I mean by that is not as much like talking and explaining their items, but mostly just showing the things rapid fire, no talking on themselves. Yeah, I was not aware just how big the men's Shein fashion haul thing is. And there are there are accounts that are like, they do so many Shein hauls. Okay, this one isn't fashion related, but I had to share it because as we learned earlier that men spend more money on alcohol than women, and also men spend more money gambling and sports betting than women. May I present to you both?
If you're seeing this video the day after Thanksgiving, it's because you're a little bitch and you don't want to drink tonight. Never forget that hangovers are just a punishment because you decided to stop drinking. You know how much of a blessing it is to have a 4-day bender? We're drinking and gambling all day, baby. Woo! Putting grandma's life support on red, baby. Come on. Rain man. Bang!
This guy makes content essentially yelling at people about drinking. This is so toxic. Like, he talks about going on like 5 to 6 day benders, and I thought maybe he was joking, but I actually think he's serious. And like his comments are full of people who are just, it feels like alcoholism. So why am I showing all of this? Like, we're just seeing a few examples, and the point is that there are so many men influencing primarily other men in the exact same way that women are. In their PR hauls, their shopping, like promoting shopping as a hobby, promoting retail therapy. They're just doing it at different stores. There is a blind spot and overconsumption critique that is overemphasizing women's participation in it. So this really gets to the question, why? Why is there a hyper focusing on women? I have a few ideas about this. Who is making the critique and their algorithm does play a role in the things that they're seeing. I will say that it took me a while to find men's content. I actually had to like, even when I was searching, like one of the things I was looking for was like gift guides for men. And even when I was looking at men's outfit of the day, like men's OOTD, the bulk of the results were not videos from men. They were from women. And I had to like engage in much more men's content in order to get anything at all. And some of the back to school content video, I did not see a single video from a man. Otherwise, I would have included it, to be honest. But this is a bit of my own content being like my own search and interaction is like being served back to me. And so this was definitely a lesson for future video. TikTok's demographics do play a role in the kind of content that gets seen, I would say, because when we look at their demographics, there's a chart on the screen. These are from 2024. So 3 of the 4 main demographics are women, with the top demographic being 18 to 24-year-old women, representing about a quarter of all TikTok users. If the top 2 demographics are women, this would mean the default TikTok viewer is statistically a young woman. This matters because platforms grow around their dominant audience. TikTok is no different and optimizes for engagement, so it pushes the content that users respond to most consistently, which tends to be lifestyle, beauty, home, fashion, type of content. So, what this means is that you get more visibility for female coded content, more algorithmic preference for those genres, and more cultural narratives focused on what young women are doing online. TikTok having a heavily female viewer base does not mean that they dominate every field ever or that you couldn't get served content that is not women doing these things. I bet you there are a ton of people in this community who get served a variety of content from either like from men or from women who are not doing shopping things. So, women dominate the space that is most traditionally associated with consumerism, which has the effect of women being the face of consumption. My own content does focus on many traditionally female coded interests. That's makeup, fashion, home decor, I think being probably like the three main ones. This is in part on purpose because this is the content that has shaped me and my own interests, as well as getting into the shopping problem that I once had. My entire channel started as a documentation of getting out of that problem and, changing my shopping behavior over time. I use shopping as a way to deal with uncomfortable emotions. Shopping was a coping mechanism, a stress relief, and a way to control my life. So, when I'm talking about the topics that I talk about, or when I'm focusing on fashion content for women or beauty content, I'm thinking about myself and how this used to affect me, but also people like me. The beauty industry, wellness industry, fast fashion, influencer marketing are multi-billion-dollar machines designed around female consumers. When it's not companies, it's women who are encouraging other women to shop more, buy their links, their products. And I think it is fair to say that men are quite often speaking to other men and women are quite often speaking to other women. And the people who are making critiques, myself included, tend to be women. Not always, though. So when you are somebody who has been shaped by this environment, I think it's fair to push back on that. What is also fair to say is that there are entire genres of overconsumption that are not being adequately addressed. Myself and others. And I think like I can only speak for myself here. Over the past few months, this is something that I've definitely picked up on and have made attempts to balance things out a bit. I think in the past few Amazon videos, you'll see a bit more of a balance in content coming from men versus women. Also, when I was looking at the barista video, was looking and included content from men and women. But it's also fair to say that some content, Shein content, fashion content generally, has exclusively focused on women. And there is much more room in those categories and probably others that I cover as well that should also include men. I have, however, been asked, like, why don't I cover video games, board games, sports? Like, I've been asked about like sports culture, and I would say that I don't tend to cover those specific topics because I don't have interest there. Like, yeah, I have interest in some sports, but okay, it's like basically hockey. I have interest in some of those, and that interest did come out in a sports gambling video recently. Other things I just don't have the interest in, and I just don't think I'm the person to make that content. I was working on a golf video over the summer. If you remember where I crashed out over the golf ball Amazon review, that video came because I was looking at golf stuff. It just didn't happen because I like don't really care about golf. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. To be clear, I'm not saying these things to deflect criticism because I have overfocused on women in a way that is detrimental to women. And also, how I've critiqued women in the past has also been unfair. And I think my own experiences with essentially shopping addiction has led to a lot of anger at women encouraging other women to shop in ways that I view as problematic and destructive. And that has 100% clouded my own analysis. And I really feel like over the last 6 months specifically, I have really focused on being more empathetic, but also trying to remove the moralizing from the equation and focus more so on the behavior than the people. Don't always get it right, but that has been the active goal. And I see that being better over time. Consumer culture and overconsumption absolutely includes men, and it does a disservice to everybody to exclude them. And what this video has shown me is that I need to overall do a better job of getting that balance, not only because it's more accurate, but a hyper focusing on women has the capacity to do harm. I do want to say that, this audience is largely women. It's over 85% women here. And I want to kind of end, it's going to be a long section, but I want to end on why I believe it is so important for women specifically to protect themselves against overconsumption and shopping addiction. I do not think it's important because I believe women as fundamentally weak, fragile, or naive. Absolutely not. It is because women are deliberately and relentlessly targeted in ways that are gendered. And there are outcomes of these things that are also gendered, even if the targeting is not. Modern marketing frames self-improvement as salvation and positions consumption as the pathway to competency, beauty, order, and worth. And when you live inside that environment, it becomes like the stakes become so high. You are defending your sense of identity against an entire industry built on monetizing insecurity. Women overall are served more ads than men because women do more household shopping. And women are also served more ads in specific genre categories like appearance than men. As an example, marketers often rely on gender stereotypes when targeting advertisements. Research shows that women spend significantly more time and money on appearance enhancements than men. A survey found that 70% of American women spend an hour a day on their appearance, with the top two most viewed categories by women on YouTube being appearance related. Another study revealed that the average woman spends 10 minutes applying makeup daily, uses 16 cosmetic products before leaving the house, and spends around $300,000 on facial products over their lifetime. These stats demonstrate that advertisers have substantial evidence for the business case to target beauty and cosmetic ads towards women rather than men. Women are more relentlessly targeted by advertising, and they are told that your life, a better you is one purchase away. And it's a responsibility of yours. Women receive this messaging specifically, and I'm talking like beauty here specifically as well. Women are served these messages from girlhood. And girls are taught that appearance is a form of competence, that the right moisturizer is evidence of care, and that staying thin or youthful or polished are things that you should care about. They're part of being a responsible woman. Keeping up with trends is a requirement if you want to be socially relevant, and you apparently want to be socially relevant. Being thin, young, and conventionally attractive they're not framed as optional. They're framed as things that you must do, that you should care about them. And it's a way of doing life properly. And this can feel like saying no isn't really about opting out or resisting an ad. It can feel like failing the role that you are expected to perform. Once self-worth becomes entangled with consumption, marketing does more than empty your bank account. It shapes your values, your routines, and your expectations. And your internal sense of enoughness. How many women have a fucked up sense of being enough as you are? I'm not angry at you. I'm like, as we're going through and like we're getting to the end, I'm getting increasingly angry at the state of affairs. So if you're picking up on that, that's what it is. And as well, this is not abstract. There are so many studies about this. I'm just going to go into a couple, but I could probably spend an entire video going over different studies. Scholars of post-feminist media culture point out that so-called empowering femvertising often reinforces the idea that a woman's value lies in how well she maintains herself through consumption. Experimental research on TikTok beauty content shows significant spikes in appearance shame, anxiety, and lowered self-compassion after even brief exposure to this content. When the emotional trigger and the advertised solution are part of the same system, it becomes incredibly difficult to step back and see the structure clearly. Even if men were targeted in the same way, the consequences are not the same. Over her lifetime, women earn less money, they save less because they earn less money, and accumulate less long-term wealth. Women face higher rates of abuse and violence, financial abuse included, is perhaps the most overt way, but even like domestic violence has financial consequences, and women can become economically dependent on men, which also has consequences. And women, and I quote, suffer more severe financial consequences of divorce. When you combine all of this with nonstop pressure to spend as a form of identity maintenance, autonomy gets eroded in ways that can be invisible, but they accumulate powerfully over time. And as a side note, which will just be a footnote here, as the climate crisis worsens, inequalities and inequities will worsen with it. Time, attention, and emotional energy spent on chasing trends and maintaining aesthetics become essentially unpaid labor that these corporations rely on. And it is work that is framed as pleasurable or self-care. Yet little of that builds resiliency, self-acceptance, empathy, kindness, or self-fulfillment. Stability or independence maybe as well. And they can be colossal distractions from other things that we care about that can do these things. I'm not saying that like you either like if you're not shopping or watching this kind of content that like you must be going and fighting for a cause. No, it could be working on hobbies or meeting with other women, maintaining relationships that you care about. Other important things that allow us to lead fundamentally more fulfilling lives. This is why protecting attention and money matters so deeply to me, and why I think women especially need to guard themselves against overconsumption. Consumer culture that wants to monopolize your time, attention, and money. It is not about aestheticism or self-denial, and I'm not saying you can't buy anything ever or you can't care about your appearance or your clothes or even traditionally feminine interests. I think it's incredibly important to resist systems designed to shape your identity around consumption and redirecting your time and attention to activities that do build that resilience, that joy, that empathy, that self-fulfillment, and ultimately a sense of self that exists beyond things that you buy. Or I should say, it's outside of the things that you buy and having an identity that is not centered around consumption. And you become far less vulnerable to people preying on your insecurities and from industries that profit off of your doubt and the monopolization of your time. So that was a huge video. We talked about so many things. I hope ultimately that you enjoyed this one and that you see changes coming from this video in the future. That's everything for me today. Thanks so much for being here, and I hope to see you again around here soon for a new one. Bye.